Happy New Year, everyone. This is Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start from the global space as usual, doing business for 30 minutes before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. Oil prices notch higher on Thursday, the first day of trade for 2025. As investors returning from holidays cautiously eye a recovery in China's economy and feel demand following a pledge by President Xi Jinping to promote growth. We look at the numbers this morning and we see it in green at 0.6% for Brent, hitting $75.10. I guess we have to remember this day, the first trading day of the year, and Brent is on $75. It closed at around 74. Then WTI is $72.21 after it gained 0.7%. As I mentioned earlier, eyes on China economy after China's president has said in his New Year's address that the country would implement more proactive policies to promote growth this year. An official survey released on Tuesday, China's manufacturing activity barely grew in December, though services and construction recovered. The data suggested that the stimulus package is making some impact, and China is bracing up for trade risks from tariffs proposed by the incoming president of the United States, Donald Trump. Now we come to Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu has said that his administration plans to float a national credit guarantee company to expand risk-sharing instrument for financial institutions and enterprises. The president made this known in his New Year message and highlights that the company, which is expected to start operations before the end of the second quarter, is in partnership among government institutions such as the Bank of Industry, Nigerian Consumer Credit Corporation, the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Agency, and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. The private sector will also be involved, as well as multilateral institutions. President Tinubu also assures that the initiative will strengthen the confidence in the financial system, drive growth, and expand credit access for underserved groups such as women and youth. Now, let's look at the Naira, the performance as the year begins. How did the Naira perform in 2024? It received a whole lot of knocks and went to different directions. But at the close of 2024, we would notice that the Naira lost 40.9% to settle at 1,535 Naira 82 kobo. And of course, we saw this level being sustained for the last couple of weeks before 2024 ended, especially after the introduction of eFirm. Well, some players in the industry think that this is going to be a comfortable stance and is going to be sustained for some time. One of those is the Group Managing Director of Capital Field, Dr. Raphael Lewu. He's optimistic that with the moves and the eFirm that the Naira will sustain this level at least. But of course, there are also some fears, even in the mind of Mr. Lewu.
The real value of the currency, in the sense that I'll say price discovery process. With the recent introduction of the B match, we'll see that, and given the peculiar nature of the transparency that is brought to the system, we can begin to see where we are. It dropped to 1,500 and something from wherever it was at before that introduction, and it's been somewhat managed or stable so far. How sustainable that will be, I think it's for all of us to see. The folks in CBN, to my mind, are trying their best, because now they are more engaging than the former regime, which is a good thing. If you engage and then you monitor closely what's going on in the market, you will get results that we are seeing. Secondly, we are beginning to see that the illiquidity we thought was in the market probably wasn't that what we thought it was. Liquidity somewhat now can be seen to be there.
We'll get more views on the Naira. But first, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry is commending the government's effort so far towards achieving the successes in the economy, one of which is the plan on the National Credit Guarantee Company announcement towards unlocking access to credit, particularly for women, youth, and small-scale enterprises. However, the Chamber reiterates concerns about consistency of policies and the reforms currently driven by the government. It's asking for critical investment in telecommunications sector to boost digital transformation agenda of this government, as well as towards compressed natural gas initiative. Now let's talk more about the Naira and expectations for 2025 with the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. Mr. Rwani, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and the viewers.
Yeah, so we saw there the Naira, it lost about more than 40% last year, but towards the end we saw a bit of stability. Mr. Lewu there expressing optimism, especially with the EFM. What do you see this year when it concerns the Naira?
Our view is that the Naira will appreciate moderately and modestly, trading to about 1550, and I'm talking about the parallel market here. About 1550 to anywhere between 1550 to 1600 at the end of the first quarter. Right now, the value of the Naira is dependent on so many variables, many of them out of our control. But generally speaking, the arbitrage corridor between the official and the parallel rate has been reduced, and therefore the incentive to round trip rather than being engaged in productive activity is being reduced. So generally speaking, it should moderate, and also the whole target of bringing inflation down moderately is also going to help, because once inflation begins to taper, then the currency remains stable. Remember, the central bank governor said, "I'm not interested in the value of the currency, but the stability of the currency," which is very instructive when you think about it. The currencies are by nature volatile, but its stability is what is important as a goal.
So, Mr. Rwani, while there's optimism, there's also fears of sustainability, of the trend, which a lot of people have applauded. Do you see any risks that could disrupt this sustainability that we've enjoyed for about a month now?
You see, once the currency is efficiently priced, then you can now begin to hedge against that volatility. Volatility is a natural consequence of free markets, and that's why you have hedge products, which you have options and other products which you can use to hedge against that. And once the investors and manufacturers and corporates know that this is the trajectory of the Naira, and then they buy hedge products, right? Then they can actually factor that in all the way through the end of the year. Remember, the airline industry is the one that suffers most from price volatility, but they've been able to keep their profits reasonable because of the hedge against it, hedge against this inherent volatility in the market.
So can we expect that with this, hopefully sustained level of the Naira, can it feed into drop of inflation, or will it be the other way around? Remember, 15% is the target for this year.
Well, the target is an aspiration. The reality is that we think that inflation could reduce from approximately 35% to somewhere like 27 or 25%. 15% rate of inflation is really very, very bullish and aspirational. But again, we are free to have our aspirations, but we as economists deal in the world of reality. And in the world of reality, we see more of 27%, anything between 25 and 27 on the optimistic side. And I would rather bet on that than bet on much optimistic scenarios.
Mr. Rwani, we were just discussing before I came on air on the best commodity for the year. Honestly, I thought it was gold, because we saw the leaps and bounds that gold recorded. But, I mean, looking further, it does seem it's cocoa. And I wonder how much of that gain from that performance from cocoa that Nigeria enjoyed.
Well, Nigeria has always had an aspiration. I use the word aspiration again. of 250,000 tons a year. We've actually averaged at about 200,000 tons a year. We are the 5th largest cocoa producer. But the point is that the price of cocoa has gone up by over 400% from $2,000 a ton to almost $12,000 a ton. And therefore, technically speaking and theoretically and practically, we should be seeing a boom in activity in Ekiti, Osun, Oyo State, Ondo State, which is the epicenter of cocoa production. Again, it takes 5 years for a new tree to begin with a new genetically modified cocoa pods to actually begin to mature. But definitely this is a major thing for Nigeria. We used to earn about $600 million. Now, this year, we are expecting to get at least $2.5 billion. And this is significant and a major achievement in terms of reducing the dependence of the economy on oil and gas. I think that's important. But one point you made when you started this program was you talked about the price of oil at $75, and you alluded to the expansion in the Chinese economy and the incentives and stimuli coming out from China. But what we didn't take into consideration was that this price of 75.3, that's the highest point it has been for a few months. It is also dependent on the fact that for the first time in over 23 years, there was an attack, a terrorist attack on the mainland of the United States. What happened in New Orleans yesterday? I think that's very important, because after 9/11, that was the last time there was a terrorist attack on the United States. This heightens the probability that anything is possible in the Middle East, and therefore the price of oil, which is dependent on 1, production, 2, demand, and now the fear and terrorist factor, which are now come back in. So we might be looking in a very perverse way at the fact that price of oil will be much higher. Our projection that oil will trade at about $70 a barrel. But in a world that you don't know what's going to happen next, especially with this development, we have to be very cautious and build into the scenarios, what if this happens? We now see that something has happened, and on the first day of the year, for that matter, in New Orleans. So again, we don't know what's going to happen, but we should play on the side of caution. We think that the price of oil will stay at $70, but anything is possible with Iran, Syria, the new Trump administration, and what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. So the commodities market is up in the air.
Yes, up in the air. Mr. Bismarck-Rawani, thank you so much for, opening our eyes to some realities that we could expect this year, especially with that news from New Orleans. Well, thank you, Mr. Bismarck-Rawani. I hope we will do this year together as we did last year.
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you.
All right, now, apart from the commodities, let's look at the human resources. How prepared are we to embrace the opportunities and the challenges of 2025 as individuals, as a worker, and even in our personal lives? Well, let's discuss HR this morning with Dr. Emumina, David Emumina, the Managing Director of PM for Success International Limited, joins us from our Abuja studio. Dr. Emumina, good morning and Happy New Year to you.
Good morning and Happy New Year to you too as well. Happy New Year to our viewers.
All right, so
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So the year 2025, obviously, like 2024 started, would come with its challenges and its advantages, benefits, opportunities. When you look at the Nigerian scenario, macroeconomic issues, we just talked about the Naira, commodities and all of that. ICT is also making its way already in core conversations. As individuals, how do you think we can prepare to make the most of this year?
Okay, thank you very much once again. The opportunities are enormous. We have boundless opportunities around the capacity building, around training, around human resources. And individuals at those points need to understand that for you to be able to succeed in this year 2025, you must put a lot of things into consideration. You must build your capacity in the areas of ICT. Technology is advancing. We have new areas of technology innovations. We have the areas of IT, AIs, and the advent of AI is driving the conversations around whatever we do. So for a workforce, one that is working, an individual, at the beginning of this year, today is second, a lot of us have had good goals. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to achieve. But oftentimes you realize that towards the middle of the year, if you try to do an evaluation of what you've achieved in terms of capacity building, personal development, they've not been able to do anything. So we'll try as much as possible to encourage individuals that while you're setting your goals for 2025 in terms of personal development, for you to stay competitive, you must be able to ensure that you must have a strategic plan on how you're going to build your capacity. It's going to be on a quarterly basis or it's going to be on a monthly basis. So you must be able to set out some level of funds available for you to be able to build your capacity, because technology is changing the way we work, and you can be in Nigeria and as well be working outside the shores of this country. So that's why we say technology has come to stay, and we all as people that are working, we must embrace that technology and build our capacity in those regards. For those that are currently working and that want to upskill into different various sectors, you look at the relevant courses that are obtainable in those areas and train. For year 2025, there are key courses that we should be looking at: project management, data analytics, AI, UI, UX. All of these courses are very relevant, emotional intelligence. So you must be able to look at, for the new areas or the new sector I'm going to be working in, what are the necessary skills and trainings that is required for me to be able to succeed. The demand for cybersecurity certifications and skills is on very high this 2025. So one can be able to look at it and say, okay, I want to transit from probably HRO to data. Then you pick up some courses around data analytics, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be somebody that have a first degree in IT before you can be able to transit into that space. You just do some courses online, and by the help of God and God being on your side, you can just see yourself landing into a new job. Then for those that are in the school, that are just fresh graduates, that are coming into the workforce, they must be able to understand that our university system teaches you and gets you ready. But the truth of the matter is that there's a gap between the industry and the university. So you should be able to look at what are these areas of interest that I want to work in, what are the courses that I need to take for me to be able to stay competitive. And you cannot take the place of e-learning, because right now is very one can sit in the comfort of his home and learn. So for us to be able to look at all of these things, you must ensure as an individual you put in consideration in your plan, not just setting a goal that I'm going to do XYZ training. You must be very intentional about those areas of trainings that you want to do and be very specific about them.
Yeah, but the reality is that a lot of people really want to do this. But, I mean, when you look at the value of the Naira, look at time management, because you already have a job. Perhaps you have school fees and all to pay. These may be discouraging factors, even when an individual is aware of the fact that, oh, this is where the world is going, I should get training, perhaps I can do it online. But the reality, sometimes can push people the other way.
Yeah, I understand that. We are not going to undermine the fact that the Naira is not also doing well against the dollar. We are also not undermining the fact that the economy, there comes with a lot of challenges and stress. But the truth is, there are cheaper ways of getting this thing done. And it starts with your commitment, right? So if you are determined that you need to do this, you look at the area of time management. So you can be able to put in, if it's 30 minutes of 1 hour on daily basis. At PM for Success, for example, we have a career academy platform that's cater for those that want to do the personal development, right? And the costs are quite very low. It doesn't require a lot of cost from you. And I think at the time we are done with this training, we're also going to have a conversation with Chinese on this so that we can be able to see what we can do around that space. For those that are willing and are ready to take the decision of building their capacity, irrespective of the challenges that are around us right now, we can be able to start a journey, and you just pay very token, and you see by the end of the day, you're already achieving what you plan to achieve. But you see that commitment is what we need, because oftentimes, like I said, we don't get to commit to it. And the truth of the whole situation is, when we make this plan, sometimes we don't put God in the plan. So there must be God in the plan. And you see the opportunities that are enormous, these low-hanging fruits that you can take off from there, and you start running with it. So that is what we should be able to look at. So as we make our year declaration and we plan and all of that, let God be at the center stage of it. And with little opportunities, information's coming from channels, and with the conversation we're going to be having with channels after this whole session, to see opportunities and how we can be able to do all of those things to Nigerians with little of no cost at all. So there are a lot of things that one can be able to achieve. It's just being determined, focused, and stay committed to ensure that this is what I want to do. I want to build my capacity in this area, and look out for the opportunities, look out for the low-hanging fruit. You have your online platforms here and there. Some you start the program, you can't be able to complete, but with mentorship, you can be able to do that. And we'll try as much as possible. Like I've mentioned, we'll try to see how we can work out something with channels and put that out, and people can be able to understand that these things is doable. It's just for you to commit to it.
All right, Doctor, the authenticity of online courses also comes to play here. Have we gone above that? Is it widely accepted, especially like here in Nigeria? Has it been embraced totally?
Yes, it is. It has been embraced. Yes, the acceptance is very high, because, like I said, online courses and online platforms, learning platforms, majority of them have global certifications. Using our Career Academy, for example, if you are transiting into IT, you're going to be doing courses that are going to be certified with the likes of Google and IBM and all of those guys, global top IT companies in the world. So wherever your certifications are presented, those certificates are presented, or wherever those skills you present yourself and they see that you have some of those certificates, it gives you an advantage. So the acceptance is very high. And like I said, everybody cannot afford to pay very expensive fee for some of these courses, but there are other options that you can be able to go through and get the same certification, get the skills, the right skill set, and you just fit into the industries that you find yourself in. And what most important is, do you have the required skill set to be able to perform on this job? That is what we are looking at. Then by the time we look at, okay, where is your certification coming from? So before we even talk about the certification you are acquiring, we are looking at if you have the capacity and what it takes to be able to perform on that role that you are applying for. So those are the kind of things we will be looking at. And the acceptance, like I say, is very high.
All right, so we've talked about from the perspective of individuals. What about as organizations? We know with what's going on, a lot of organizations are looking for how to cut costs, HR, and ensure that, the retained resources, human resources, is used efficiently. How do you see this being achieved by organizations?
Okay, so this is where the HRO team, we have to do a lot, because the truth is, I think last year I had a conversation with NPC Academy, and we're looking at, they have a program where you can be able to look at the skills that is required for a particular staff to be able to perform on a job. So in that kind of conversation, our HRO department needs to look at, for the 10 staff, for example, I have in my company, we need them to be able to perform. From last year, they did, let me say, 50%. This year, we want them to do 80%. What are the skills that they need to do? So at this point, organizations should be able to have a proper cost, not too big, but at least set at a cost. Then look out for partners that can be able to offer those certifications or training in-house to their team, for them to be able to retain the human resource they have, retain all of the experts they have, then have them trained professionally so that they can be able to perform more. more. I think it's a call for organizations at this year, 2025, that if you want your team to remain with you, you must be able to be interested in building their capacity. So you're not going to leave that role to just the staffs alone. The organization should be the one to drive the process, so that at the end of the day, another organization that is interested in investing into their people will not come in and take your best team out of you, and the next thing you begin to have issues of sustainability and all of that. So we must be able to, organizations, HROs, all of HROs practitioners at the different levels of organization must be able to put into consideration the need to understand that our people are our assets and they are the greatest part of the organizations. If we don't have our people with us, we won't be able to achieve the good strategic plan, the good goals that we have set for the year. So we need to invest into those our people by ensuring that we train them and make sure that they all follow through the training processes, and try as much as possible to help them in areas of their welfare as well. So you're not just looking at trainings, you also be interested about them, because that is the only way you can be able to have your people retain with you in the organization in this year 2025.
All right, and we hope with all of that we'll have less of the jackpot happening this year. Dr. David Ebumena, the Managing Director of PM for Success International Limited, thank you for sharing your time and tips with us this morning.
Thank you very much. And in my final thought is that as you plan and get ready for the year as it starts today, ensure that whatever you're doing, you have it properly planned, and let God be at the center stage, because that is the only part you can be able to achieve success. Thank you, Channels, for the privilege, and Happy New Year to all of our viewers. Thank you, please.
Thank you so much. All right, just before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio, there's optimism coming even from Afrexim Bank. The Nigeria's challenging economy, they say, is heading for a major turnaround this year. This is the positive projection made by the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors at the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim, Mr. Benedict Orama. He made this known during an interview with Channels Television in Lagos.
We see a situation that the country would find itself in a major turnaround because all the ingredients are there. I think the policy framework, the policy environment in terms of the exchange rate, in terms of aspects of subsidies have been resolved. Very, very hard decisions, and they are affecting the people negatively, as policies of this nature normally does. What we call the pains before the gains. I think we are going on to move into the gains because with the Dangote refinery, the Port Harcourt refinery, and the Warri refinery coming on stream, with the crude for Naira that the president introduced and which is being implemented, we already started seeing the decline in petroleum prices. I think the key issue will be reduction in inflation and how that will then affect interest rates and overall investment in the economy. Because these investments that will create jobs, make things much better for the people.
The president of Afrexim Bank there. And on that optimism note, we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. Laddie Williams will be back at 1 p.m. With Will Ibong to take you around the world of business in 55 minutes. That'll be Business Incorporated. For now, Sunrise Daily continues.